Hello everyone, welcome to Broadview. My name is Joseph. Today we're going to talk about dreams. Many people have experienced déjà vu. You know, when you're struck by that sudden strange feeling of familiarity. That undeniable feeling that you've experienced a situation before. Perhaps after giving it some thought, you remember that you've already done this in your dream. Your dream somehow manifested into reality. Many people have dreamt before about having a loved one living in a different country saying goodbye. But when they woke up, they actually received the sad news that their loved one had passed away. Sometimes our dreams feel so unbelievably real and vivid that we question ourselves, was I dreaming or did it actually happen? Okay, let's attempt to get to the bottom of this. What are dreams all about? Are dreams connected to the soul? Dr. Sam Parnia is a medical doctor from the UK. Astonishingly, he is the first person in the world to confirm the existence of souls through scientific experiments. Inside the hospital, the deceased soul would see the doctor performing resuscitation procedures. The soul would also be able to see the lights on the ceiling from an upper angle. To test this, during each resuscitation attempt, different figures were placed on suspended boards facing the ceiling, under the assumption the soul would be able to see these figures. After successful resuscitation, the patients were then asked about the images. From the accuracy of their answers, Dr. Parnia came to the conclusion that souls do exist, for no other explanation was available. Dr. Parnia studied over 100 patients. The patients brought back to life shared about what they had seen after separating from their body. When questioned about the images on the suspension boards, they answered correctly. His experiment succeeded, which led to many scientists to further research this possibility. In one example, Kenneth Ring was a psychology professor at the University of Connecticut. He presented the case of a woman who had been resuscitated after cardiac arrest. She told the nurse that after leaving her body, she floated over her body, viewed the resuscitation effort for a short time, and then felt herself being pulled up through several floors of the hospital. She then found herself above the hospital roof and saw a red shoe on the roof. The nurse related it to a skeptical resident, who got a janitor to get him onto the roof. He found the red shoe exactly as the woman had described and became a believer too. Here's an even more jaw-dropping story. We've shared this in one of our past programs. Eben Alexander, a prestigious American neurosurgeon, went through a near-death experience. He devoted his life to neuroscience and never believed in the afterlife. Unfortunately, in 2008, he suffered from a bacterial meningitis. He was immediately taken to the hospital, and then he remained in a medically induced coma for 7 days. During the coma, he had visited the spiritual world and met his deceased relatives there. After he woke up, the first thing he did was to review the data recorded during his comatose. As soon as he finished reading it, he had a whole new perspective about life. Because he was in a coma, he had no EEG activity. His medical training and knowledge told him that it's impossible to have any memories, dreams, or hallucinations in the absence of brain activity. But his experience was so vivid, so it definitely didn't result from any brain activity. There's only one possible explanation. It was an authentic, out-of-body experience. For our friends who are interested, you can check out our previous program on this topic. Western countries have already done extensive research in near-death experiences like these. Each year, roughly 200,000 Americans report their near-death experiences. They usually report experiencing the soul leaving the body, watching their body being resuscitated next to them, and going to another realm and seeing a vision. Many even relay their experiences meeting and reconnecting with long-lost relatives and friends. How could we objectively verify the existence of souls and get in touch with them? We'll need to talk about the two major things that souls do during their out-of-body experiences, which is revisiting the past lives or seeing the future in advance. Dante Alighieri is considered to be one of the finest poets during the Renaissance period. But his out-of-body experience is often easily overlooked. He wrote a poem called The Divine Comedy. It's a detailed record of his travels in hell, purgatory, and heaven. He also had conversations with the souls of many well-known people. The Divine Comedy is a grand narrative with over 14,000 lines. Shortly before his death, Dante finished writing the Divine Comedy, but he didn't get the chance to publish it. Unfortunately, he caught malaria when he went to Venice. After returning, he passed away. Dante's sons, Jacopo and Pietro, were organizing their father's belongings. They found that the original manuscripts for the poem were missing some pages. They looked everywhere and searched through all the documents. But after months of searching, nothing turned up. They were desperate. One day, Jacopo had a vivid dream. His father appeared in a white robe, surrounded by spiritual light. Jacopo asked his father, "Is the Divine Comedy finished?" Dante nodded and pointed to a spot inside his room. When Jacopo woke up, he hired a lawyer to be the witness. At the place where Dante had pointed out in his dream, Jacopo found a loose board on the wall. He found pages of dusty manuscripts stored inside. Some of the pages were starting to grow mold. When Jacopo took a closer look at the writing, they were indeed the missing manuscripts of the Divine Comedy. This was a visitation dream, a dream of the bereaved. In visitation dreams, the deceased can either appear in the dream of one person or a group of people. Usually the dreamers would be family members or friends of the deceased. The deceased would talk about how they were doing after death or about relevant details of the past. If you're not impressed by visitation dreams, then wait until you hear about precognitive dreams. It's incredible how souls can glimpse into the future and pass on the information through dreams. It means that while the soul is out of body, it can travel through time and deliver messages about the future to the past. A precognitive dream is a dream that predicts the future. It's about something that hasn't happened yet, but eventually comes true and materializes. The most famous precognitive dream in the world is the dream of the former US President Abraham Lincoln. Lincoln was assassinated on April 14, 1865. Just days before his assassination, Lincoln had a strangely vivid dream. In it, he heard sounds of many people crying sadly. He walked into the East Room of the White House to find a covered corpse guarded by soldiers and surrounded by a crowd of mourners. When Lincoln asked one of the soldiers who had died, the soldier replied, "The president, he was killed by an assassin." When he woke up, he was left with a lingering, uneasy feeling. So he shared the dream with a small group of people. Surprisingly, Lincoln was assassinated a few days later. His body was laid in the East Room of the White House. There are also stories of precognitive dreams that had predicted the sinking of the Titanic, believe it or not. Isaac Freudenthal and Eugene Daly were both surviving passengers of the Titanic. Before boarding the ship, Freudenthal had a dream that the ship crashed and sank. After boarding the Titanic, he had the same dream again. Daly had a slightly different experience. He boarded the Titanic in Queenstown. Upon leaving Queenstown, he immediately told a group of friends that he had dreamt that the Titanic was going to sink. Every night while at sea, he had the same nightmare. On Sunday night, just before going to bed, he told some group of friends that the Titanic was going to sink that night. In 1912, hundreds of people reported that they had similar precognitive dreams about the Titanic sinking. Now, of course, it would be hard for us to authenticate these claims. But that didn't stop the ship from going out to sea, and it most certainly didn't prevent it from sinking, although it could have changed the fate of over 2,000 passengers on the Titanic if only people were open-minded enough to listen. Having said all that, what's the science behind dreams? Early on, scientists held the belief that dreams result from brain cell activity during sleep. They considered dreams to be random, meaningless, and irrelevant. Occasionally, when dreams reflected reality, the scientists dismiss it as mere coincidence. Because according to research, people have an average of 3 to 5 dreams each night. There are billions of people on Earth, so statistically speaking, it's not surprising if a couple of these dreams actually turned out to be the same as future events. But there are also scientists who believe that dreams convey valuable messages. We just need to figure out what message each dream is trying to convey. Here's an interesting analogy. When antelopes are chased by fierce predators, they have a very unusual way of escaping. Instead of running away quickly like the other animals, the antelopes try their best to jump high, without going far in horizontal distance. Isn't this a self-destructive way to escape? But in reality, the predators are actually scared of the antelopes that could jump so high, so they would only go after the weaker antelopes. This proves the point that the real is rational and the rational is real. In nature, antelopes would not adopt this inefficient way of escaping if it were useless. In nature, everything happens for a reason. Just like our dreams, there must be meanings behind them. Here's my explanation of the meaning behind our dreams. When we're awake, our physical body limits our inborn spiritual ability. Our body is a physical substance that exists in this dimension. It serves as a lock that limits us to the realities of this dimension. But when our physical body is inactive, our soul is able to exercise and experience some of its innate abilities. Our soul exists in another time and space. It's not constrained by the realities of this dimension, so it can travel through time and space to see the past and the future. The soul has existed in many previous bodies and previous lives, and stores a lot of information in the subconscious. When we enter a state of deep sleep or go through a near-death experience, the physical body is inactive. We can break free from our body and allow the information held by the soul to be released. The soul contains the source of the information that a person receives when dreaming or going through a near-death experience. Of course, there's another well-known psychological theory that explains dreams, and that is Carl Jung's theory of the collective unconscious. The theory believes that each person's mind is like a floating iceberg. The consciousness is like the tip of an iceberg that floats above water, which consists of only 1% of the whole iceberg, while the subconscious is the remaining 99% of the iceberg that lies underwater. The ocean floor on which all icebergs rest is the collective unconscious. Well, that's it for today's program. I wonder, what's your view on dreams? Or have you ever had any incredible dreams or near-death stories that you can share with us? Feel free to leave your comments below, and we'll see you next time. Thanks for watching.